Hi, I'm Dawn and this is where Shabby meets Bling. If you know me at all, you know I love yard sales, thrift shops, antique stores, and picking up junk alongside of the road that people have discarded, but I have an idea for. So that being said, over the years I've accumulated quite a few items, and every time I pick something up, it has an intention. So if I pick up A, then I know I'm gonna need B, C, and D, or whatever the case may be, to make that project come together. Well, I've had a couple things in my garage for a while, and finally those components, other things have come together, and I'm gonna make something out of them. And these are just very random, unusual things that I'm gonna marry together to make something hopefully wonderful. Let's get started.
But first, I need to thank Zaina from OK at Home DIY and Connie from Connie's Creative Creations for hosting this What Would You Make Open Challenge. I also want to thank our co-host Brenda from Rustic and Lace DIY. So for my wood element, here's random item number 1. This is an old painter's ladder that I picked up at a yard sale for $5. And the first thing I need to do is to totally disassemble it.
Those crossbar supports have to come out first, and I'm trying to be as careful as I can because I am going to reuse these crossbars.
Even though I am fighting this thing, and I will win. It may take me a while, but I will win this battle. You see? I win. I beat the ladder. Now I have to remove the shelf, and I was lucky enough that there were 2 new screws in it that someone had replaced, and they came out relatively easily. But the other 2 were back to the having to grind them off again. So slow but sure, I'm getting it done. Due to rusting, I had to use my Dremel tool with the grinder bit attached to go through the metal supports under each and every tread. It took me a while because these old ladders, they were built to last. And now that the supports are gone, I can take the steps out. Now I can cut apart the rails, and I'm just using my little jigsaw to make that happen. I'm cutting all 4 rails away from the top cap. The top cap. Now that the rails are off, I need to make sure that all 4 of them are the same length. So I'm using the chop saw to do just that. Just holding them tight together and making sure they're up against the fence, and just giving them a nice cut so that they all are the same length. Very important. If they're not, then we're gonna have a wiggly project in the end. We don't want wiggly, we want stable. Now to cut the hardware off of that top cap. Now we have all of our components, and we need to put them all back together. So it's kind of comprehensive. I'm using a lot of wood glue and my brad nailer. And I'm starting by adding in that bottom step so that we can get this thing looking like it does in my head, because in my head, it's already done. It's already done. Shifting back to the top and that top cap itself, where we cut it down, now I need to measure to see where I'm going to attach my side rails. Because if you're not really perfect on your measurements here, this whole thing will be out of square, it will be kittywampus, and it will look horrible, and we don't want that. So more wood glue and back to my brad nailer. This is really starting to take shape as to what she's gonna be. Kind of looks like a ladder though, doesn't it? We do have some fresh cuts, so We are going to age those areas as well as some of the other areas that are just a little bit too light for my taste. So I'm using a stain, and there's no varnish involved, just a stain here. And I'm brushing it on, and I will wipe it off relatively quickly because I don't want it to be too dark. I'm just trying to age this thing a little more so it's more uniform all over.
Now it's time to take a few items unrelated to one another, well, sort of related, but not really, and we're gonna put them together to create another component of this little flip.
The next piece of this little flip is a hanging basket. It disguises itself as a staked basket as well. It's kind of a cool little item. Never used it, picked it up at a resale shop. I disassembled, and I'm gonna remove the coconut liners, which I know I will use in another project. Introducing very inexpensive garden landscape edger. I'm going to enhance the basket by marrying these two together. And I need to measure around the circumference of the basket to see how much of the edging I'm going to need. So I just roll it around, which is the easiest way, because then you know for sure you've got enough. I cut it a little bit long just in case I need a little extra, just with some wire cutters. My green wire is too tall, so I need to cut it down, and I'm going to do it in a way that each and every cut I make, each little strip is identical. If you notice, I'm actually leaving the pieces in place because I'm going to use those to wrap around that basket. You can see how I'm lining up that line, that piece of wire that goes the entire distance of that landscape edger with the top of my basket, and then I'm just taking that wire and bending it around once. And I don't care if they don't line up. If the lines, those wire coming from the basket line up perfectly, it doesn't matter, and you'll see why it doesn't matter in just a little bit. But you just pull it through the hole and you pull it really tight, but you make sure that those two wires stay lined up the whole perimeter. Where my wire meet, that wire edger meet, I have joined them together, married them together as discreetly as possible. And I am also working all of my wires that I use to twist to the inside of the basket. And they're gonna remain there because I'm going to use them to help secure something else. And now, let's paint. I am using ultra matte black for my first coat, and then I will come in with a second coat of this, misting it at the same time as a satin, a dark brown. So that's what it looks like with those two colors combined, because it needs to match something else. Those wires that we left hanging on the inside, I told you they were meant to hold something. This is what they're meant to hold. This beautiful metal ribbon. But everything is so rustic, it was too shiny, so I aged it. And I will do a video on showing you how I aged it. I have pre-cut a piece that goes around with a little bit of extra, and now I'm just clamping it into place where I want it. Right in between those two pieces of wire from our garden edger. And I've got glue handy in case I decide to glue it, but I would prefer not to. So right now I'm just clamping it in place. This is the important part, where that metal ribbon meets. I made sure it met where the actual edger met as well, so that you had all your seams in one location. I folded over the outer part, and on the inner part I folded it in. I'm now trimming off that piece of metal ribbon from the inside, and I'm going to use it to disguise my seam on the outside by tucking it in and folding it over and then folding it back up underneath. You create a beautiful little seam hider. So just work it in, and then you're gonna use your needle nose to get a nice smooth crimp.
Now that the major parts of our project are complete, I have a couple little details that I want to finish to make it really look like it is what it was, but something new and different. So as soon as we do that, I'm going to show you what this beautiful little item is.
Remember our braces underneath our steps? Well, I am going to cut the longer pieces down so that I can reinsert these as kind of jewelry to this little piece.
Now that it is totally finished, I'm going to show it to you, and I am going to show it to you displayed indoors and outdoors. So she's multi-purpose. You'll see.
Remember when I said it just took one item to make everything come together? This was it when I found this lamp at Goodwill. So my old wooden painter's ladder went from this to this to this. There she is, all put together, looking ever so fine, and she is rustic and she is chic, and I am just so thrilled. You can see how I reused the crossbars and how I added back in that beautiful hardware. And there's that beautiful bespoke wire garden whatnot lampshade. And you can even see I added a little bird. That bird was broken. And here she is inside. And you get a really good look at how the metal of the lamp and the paint of the shade and even that little bird match so well. And you can tell I did not darken that ladder too extreme. While outdoors, I used the steps for plants. Indoors, I used them for books. You can even use the shelf for display. Once again, I would like to thank Zaina and Connie for hosting this What Would You Make Open Challenge, and Brenda for co-hosting. Make sure you watch the entire playlist. I know you'll be glad you did. The link is in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Share it with your family and friends. Ring that bell for notifications of all of my upcoming videos. And if you enjoy the content, please support the channel by subscribing. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook. But for now, this is Dawn with Shabby Meets Bling. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.